Okay. So let's start lying down on your back with your feet flat on the floor, and your knees and thighs apart. Let's start to feel into this as our first pose. So you'll maybe bring your hands by your sides or bring your hands onto your body somewhere. Just start to settle in here. I had a great moment yesterday where I was like, oh my God, I should like listen to what I tell people to do. Because like what Rebecca was saying, I had like a second, like a 15-10 minute period to just sit and rest and breathe. And actually doing that is really a game changer. Just a little pause. So you might notice as you're settling in, there's something going on. There's an experience. But it might not always be what you thought. Notice what's actually going on. Maybe it is exactly what you thought. Exactly. Or even worse, or something like that. But you're just noticing what's going on. And as you're guiding your breath to just kind of slow down, smooth out, you might feel this sense of something developing or settling. And I'll just direct your attention towards your tailbone. No, let's start with the whole spine. Notice the whole spine first. Eventually find the tailbone as part of the spine. So you might feel the spine, like the actual bony structure, as being in the middle of you, right? You can feel this presence. You might feel parts of it that touch the floor or seem to kind of rest on the floor. Parts of it that move away from the floor, right? Like the lower back or parts of behind the neck. You can feel the space between you and the floor. And then somewhere along the spine, draw your attention towards your tailbone. You can kind of find the tailbone by feeling into the lower back and then the kind of top of the pelvis that touches the floor. So the sacrum, it's like a triangular structure. And at the bottom of that is the tailbone. And just take a few breaths, just filling your sacrum and tailbone with just your awareness. All of these movements that we'll do are optional, but also so is all of the visualization and cues and stuff like that. I know you guys know, but I just want to say. Sometimes just drawing attention towards the pelvis can be kind of weird, but I'll invite you to check it out. Yeah. You might notice if you feel your chest, like your sternum, notice how far away that is from the tailbone. Just notice that distance. Or from the pubic bone at the front of the pelvis, or the two parts of the pelvis come together at the front. You can feel this distance between the front of the pelvis and the chest, the top of the chest. And then on an exhalation, hug one knee in towards your chest. Maybe you start with your right knee. Just pretending that it takes no effort to do this. Just let the knee float in towards the chest. And you can hug the knee close, letting the shoulders relax towards the ground as much as they can. And feel the other foot is planted on the ground. Yeah. And then you'll release that foot to the ground and do the same with the other foot. On an exhalation, the left knee comes in towards the chest. Right foot is now planted on the ground. And then feel as you're hugging your left knee in towards your chest, imagine that your tailbone is reaching away from you towards the same direction as your right foot toes. So the lower back feels really broad. Yeah. And then replace your left foot on the ground, and then you'll hug both knees in towards your chest on an exhalation, hugging both knees in, letting the shoulders rest back, holding on to whatever's easy to reach, and continue to feel or imagine the tailbone going away from your head. And the lower back softening to the ground as much as it can, even though it might be a little lifted. Yeah, this asana. Good. And then you might rock side to side or forwards and back or make circles around. If you make circles with your knees, you might be able to feel some part of the lower back, like really lower back, or even the sacrum itself, kind of rotating on the ground. Or not, it's not rotating, but you're kind of moving your weight around it. That can feel kind of nice. Good. And then roll over to one side. And then come up to a seat. And we'll just chant and open, just chanting Om. And you might settle your attention now on the sit bones or the bottom of the pelvis. So the pelvis is like, comes down on both sides. And then there's like two knobbly points. And if you rock side to side, you might be able to feel them there. You center your attention there, and we'll chant, bringing the sound from that place, from the very base of the pelvis, all the way up the spine. So we'll inhale and chant Om. Then come to hands and knees. You can always pad your knees with the blanket. Also, if flat palms feels, too much some days, you can always do fists. Coming to hands and knees. And in your tabletop, I know I talk about this all the time, but find your lower back nice and broad by reaching your tailbone straight back towards the right straight behind you, away from the crown of your head, and reach the crown of your head forward, away from your tailbone. And as you kind of engage in this way, you might be able to feel kind of around between the front of the pelvis and the ribs, this kind of whole area sort of engaging. I hesitate to say engage because I don't want you to feel like you're tightening, but just like it's awake, it's alive, it's aware, rather than like blah, 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 whatever, just in the low back, letting it kind of lengthen out. And then as you exhale, tuck your tailbone underneath you, like you're a dog or something, with its tail between the legs. And as you exhale, just reach the tailbone away from you, or maybe even up and out away from the chest, towards the back of the room, towards the ceiling even. But you're moving through cow and cat, but really focusing it around the tilting of the pelvis. Yeah. You can imagine that you have a tail. I don't know. You could imagine that helps you to kind of extend. The human tailbone is kind of lame, kind of small, but you could imagine that you have a tail that can tuck underneath your legs. Good. And then let that movement of the pelvis translate through your spine. And just notice if it's easy or kind of difficult to find the pelvis and to articulate the tailbone. For some of us, it's really like, it's like, yeah, it's a no-brainer. And some of us, it's kind of like, my what? A friend of mine who's one of the same kinds of strange as me had a coworker who would walk up behind him and like put don't do this because you'll catch a case, but she was like this really cool like 40-year-old like hot lady, and she would like put her hand on his, like, it's like pretty deep down there, and she would go, this is your sacrum, like in the middle of like restaurant service. She'd be like, sacrum. And he was like, thank you. Like actually, like, yeah, thank you for like helping me connect back to my center of gravity. So some of us, we like this, we're like familiar with this area. Some of us, it's like my where. Yeah, good. So just moving through this kind of cow and cat, letting it start from the tailbone, start from the pelvis, and then let it turn into a tabletop half child's pose. Yeah, so you're tucking your tail like a scared dog and tucking under and letting it move you back and then rounding the spine. Yeah, exactly, Cassie. Yeah, good. Inhaling, coming forward with the chest. Yeah, let the shoulders relax down your back toward, yeah. And then exhaling, rounding back again. And following your breath. Good. Good. And then a slightly different kind of feeling. You'll come into, instead of that half child's pose, you'll come into a cat pose, but be as round as you can possibly be. Head and tail coming towards each other. Try to touch your chest to your knees or something crazy like that. Like try and, yeah. Ooh, rounding through the shoulders, puffing up that space in between the shoulder blades, and let the head completely relax. Yeah, good. And then just come back to sit on your heels. And actually, let's sit on the ground. And or on your heels, whichever. You'll find out which one's easier for you. You're just going to kind of like release the front of your pelvis forward and then tuck your tail underneath you. So you're kind of finding this cat cow that we just did, but you're seated. And you might be able to feel this kind of like tipping forward. The lower back kind of gets closed. And then this kind of tucking under of the tailbone and the pelvis sits back. And just kind of feeling what that feels like. Again, feeling if this is like something that's easy to find or something that's kind of confusing. It's kind of, it's weird to articulate just the pelvis for some of us. It's kind of confusing to find that articulation without the rest of this expression. Good. And then if you don't mind, we'll just get a little weirder. All of this is optional, by the way. But you'll come to sit, and you can sit however, and you'll just find underneath your seat, find your sit bone. So like sit on your hands and find if there's a pokey bone that can kind of go down into your fingers. Let's start with just one side, just the right side maybe. Just find your right sit bone. It's the part of your pelvis that goes doink, doink, this kind of shape, bottom of the pelvis. Yeah. So find the right side. And then if it's comfortable, you'll find your pubic bone, which is in the front of the pelvis. It's like in there, deep down in there. Okay. Yeah. Just find these 2 points. Be like, okay, those exist. You can maybe find your tailbone, probably not, but it's pretty deep. You can find at least the sacrum in the back. And then between the pubic bone and the sit bone, there is a ridge of bone. Like there is your pelvis. And if you want, you can kind of walk through, like kind of feeling for that connection between your sit bone and the front of the pubic bone. I wish I could show it like a diagram, but I don't have one. Just kind of feeling around. Yep. They connect. Crazy. Then just release back into a seat and notice if there's any change or difference between your 2 sides as you're seated. Yeah. Maybe a change in weight or a change in kind of, might feel like you're sitting off to the side or something funny like that. Just notice. And then find the one that you didn't find before, the left side. Also, if you're not like physically touching, you can just notice these places also with your attention too. It's another option. Find your sit bone. There it is. And you can find your sacrum and be like, okay. And then find the pubic bone and find how they connect underneath your leg, the bottom of the pelvis, from sit bone to from pubic bone all the way back to the sit bone. You can kind of just find this connection, this structural, like the bones and how they are connected. Just kind of noticing this place. And then you can release and just notice the feeling of sitting on the ground on both sides of the pelvis. Yeah. And just let your breath fill not only the pelvis, but the whole body, the whole torso. Good. And then we'll stand up and just find a tadasana, just standing on your own 2 feet and feeling your heels on the ground, your pelvis floating in between. Notice if it's interesting to stand, having explored the tailbone, the pelvis, the sacrum. Here you can like grow your tail again if you want to imagine that you have a long tail that's just down in the back. Or imagine that you have long heels that go back and behind you. There's this awareness of the lower body and the back body that we often don't have because we like live, you know, in the face and the shoulders, and we're just like figuring stuff out and doing things. Feel into the legs. And then as you inhale, we'll open the arms. And then with your palms facing down, you'll just bring all of your fingertips together. It'll look something like this. You just stretch your wrists like that. Yep, on both sides. Mm-hmm. The hand looks like this. It's kind of tucked under. Yeah, and then release that. Sneeze. And then bring your, this is just a close-up view, keeping your hand exactly how, you know, straight out to the side. You'll bring your thumb close to your forearm. Bird's eye view like that, but it's sideways. Just stretching your thumb towards your forearm. And then you can stretch your pinky towards your other side of your forearm. Like this is good climbing stuff. And then back to center. Do it with both hands at the same time. You can release your hands down by the side. If you didn't do the other side, do the other side. Just stretching your wrist one way and then the other way. And bring your hands down by your side. And then reach your arms forward and up with these kind of curled wrists, forward and up like this. This is all like not really yoga, Tai Chi or Qigong or something like that. Yeah, just feeling the wrists, release the hands back down. And then you'll do the same kind of wrist movement as you inhale. You'll reach your hands up, straight up, palms facing forward, shoulders and neck as relaxed as possible. Fingers can spread. And then you'll bring your thumbs towards your inner forearm. Like that. Thumbs towards each other. You could think of it that way. Yeah. And then pinkies away from each other. Yeah. Yeah. Good. And then release your arms back down by your sides. And just notice your hands and wrists. You can kind of shake your wrists out. Good. Now we'll take a little vinyasa with uttanasana. So we'll inhale and reach the arms up. And as you exhale, you'll fold down over your legs, bending your knees as much as you want to, and take a full breath here. Uttanasana. Feel your heels on the ground. And then as you inhale, reach the arms forward until they come alongside your ears and come all the way up. Yeah. And exhale, lower your arms down. Okay. Bring your awareness to your sit bones, or maybe even find them physically. You can kind of feel around, see if you can find them. We'll find as we exhale, as you exhale, imagine that the sit bones are moving away from each other. Okay. So see what happens. Inhale. Maybe I reach the arms up. Everything's open. I exhale, the sit bones move away from each other, and you might find yourself coming into something like Utkatasana, just kind of sitting back. Imagining that your sit bones are going away from each other. Good. Then inhale here. And then exhale, fold over your legs. Take a full breath here. Let the head and neck release. And as you're here in Uttanasana, imagine that your sit bones are spreading away from each other still. Then as you come up, you'll imagine they come closer together. So you'll inhale They come together, you come up. And exhale, lower the arms down by your sides. Yeah? There's actually two kind of movements that we can focus on. There's the sit bone, it's like a diamond. Okay. So if these would be the sit bones like this, my fingers like that. My middle fingers coming together, we could say that that's the tailbone, and then my thumbs are the pubic bone in the front, right? A diamond. Pretend I don't have these fingers. This is kind of hard. So you can imagine that as you exhale, the sit bones move away from each other like that. And then you'll inhale there. And then as you exhale, imagine that the pubic bone and the tailbone move away from each other. So the other part of the diamond expands, and that'll bring you to a forward bend. Let's just feel it out. So you'll inhale. And if this is all imaginary, it doesn't matter. It's okay. So you'll exhale, sit bones go away from each other. You sit down into your heels. Inhale here, chest is open. Then pubic bone and tailbone go in opposite directions. This kind of whole area opens and you are folded down. And take a breath here. And then maybe this time as you inhale, you feel the front and the back coming towards each other as you come up. And then exhale, lower the hands down by your sides. Try it one more time. Again, if it feels like it's all, if it's like, whoa, crazy, that's great. If it's like, what is she talking about? That's okay too. Orienting around the breath first, always. But we're getting into something a little bit more kind of subtle and maybe imaginary. This is really something interesting, I feel like. Yeah. Nice, Rebecca. Good. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Anything cool happening? Anyone? Give me a thumbs up if something is cool. Thumbs up. Sensation, breath and sensation and attention. Thumbs up.
It feels more stable.
It feels more stable, like through the feet.
Through my whole central channel, like it just feels, I don't know, it feels like I was exerting effort other places before that were not as effective. But like with this spreading while folding and then pulling in while coming up, I don't know, I feel like I was able to let go of effort in some places where it wasn't necessary.
That's cool.
And so it's more aligned.
That's awesome. That's great. Think about if you go just back to, sorry, I know this is just Uttanasana, but there's so much that I wanted to like play with. Go back to just focusing on the breath, like just the breath. I inhale and I expand, and I exhale and I, what is it? What are we doing? We're folded, we're releasing, we're following the exhale. This movement of the pelvic area, we have the thoracic diaphragm, right, which is breathing, and the pelvic diaphragm, which is breathing. And I've not found this yet personally, but there's also like a shoulder kind of diaphragm, but like my shoulders are locked up, and the key has been absolutely destroyed. I don't know if I'll ever move, but apparently one day we can find integration between all of these places, and then boom. Yeah. Good. And then let's come down to a tabletop once again. So just come down to hands and knees. Maybe kind of wag your tail side to side. Then you can tuck your toes underneath you, spread your fingers really wide, and press down through the inner edges of the palms. And as you inhale, feel the chest is nice and open. As you exhale, press into your toes and just lift your knees off the ground a little bit. And then think about the bottom of the pelvis opening, spreading, whatever kind of image. The middle of the abdomen stays really supportive, but the pelvis is spreading wide. Yeah. Feel your heels are reaching back and your pelvis is reaching back. Just feeling this really in your legs. Yeah. You can come down at any point to rest off of the wrists, but at some point you'll follow an exhalation back to downward facing dog. Yeah. Pushing with your feet, reaching with your heels, and with maybe some new awareness of the pelvis and how this opening and reaching and expanding with every exhalation. Yeah. Good. Nice. Good. And then walk your feet towards your hands to come into a forward bend. Keeping with that same kind of spirit. Let the head and neck release, let the shoulders release as much as they want to. Good. Then you'll inhale, bend into the knees a lot as you exhale, and then inhale, come up into Utkatasana, really feeling into your heels, into the support from your legs, coming into chair pose. Wow, so strong. Arms can be wherever, reaching up. Yeah. Wes, bring your knees a little closer together. Yeah, yeah. Even more, I think. And maybe come a little higher up off of in the bend in the knees. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Reaching the chest forward or however the hands want to be. Good. And then as you inhale, kind of gathering everything together, coming up to standing. Exhale, lower the arms back down. Good. Nice. Take the feet wide now. And keeping the neck and shoulders really easy through this. We'll just take this kind of dynamic twisting thing that I love. So as you inhale, you'll open the arms wide. As you exhale, you'll bend into your right knee and twist, bringing your left hand somewhere on your right leg, wherever is easy to reach. Good. Inhale to open, exhale to twist towards your right leg, bringing your hand somewhere where it lands. And then inhaling, coming back up to center. Exhale, lower both arms down by your sides. So you're coming back to center in between. Inhaling, opening everything, opening across the chest. Exhaling, bending into the other knee, left knee. Inhaling, coming up. And then exhaling, lowering both arms down. Yeah. And just try to keep the neck and the face and the shoulders as easy as possible. Continue like that with your own breath. Yeah. And some of you might bend the knee more or less, as you go. You might find that you have a little more space. You don't need to bend the knee so much. Some of you might find that the hand is on each twist is finding a closer to the floor place to land. Yeah. But there's no need to force anything in terms of like flexibility in the legs. We're really just focusing on what it feels like to twist the spine with the exhale. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Really good. Yeah. Yeah. And then once you've done an even kind of side to side, come back to center. And then you'll exhale and fold over your legs, just a forward bend with your legs really wide like this. Yeah, bringing your hands down to wherever they can land, maybe onto blocks or onto the floor. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And just let the head go. I feel like Megan, you can bend your knees a little bit more. And Rebecca can just let the head go. And Kaleshwari can let the shoulders just yeah. Yeah. Even if they're where your hands were, that can be good. I just want to make sure that your shoulders aren't doing more than they need to do. And then everybody can shift a little bit more into the toes. That's good to deep bend in the knees for Richard. Yeah, move more into the toes and just feel that you are hanging from a point. Like the tailbone can be the very top of this shape. Blech. Head and neck are released. Good. And inhale, come halfway up, bringing your hands to your hips. And exhale here, feeling the belly move towards the spine, supporting you. This kind of halfway up position. Then inhale, come the rest of the way up. And then just step your feet back together. Coming to Tadasana, noticing whatever you notice. So just be aware of what it feels like to stand. If it feels different than standing at the beginning of the practice or standing in general, just pedestrian, regular standing. Yeah. You know, when you're like on a if you're on a bus or something, or you're on a train and you're like, you stand, or I do, I don't know, this is, you're supposed to do this, but I'd be like really standing, not like that, but like really, you know, you have a bend. Yeah, I would board the subway like this, and I'm like, don't, and then I don't even move the whole ride. The train is like, and I'm just like, no, but you bend your knees a little bit so that the train is going and you have like some stability. If you're just standing like this and you're like stilettos, like you're gonna be like knocked all over the place. I got my big boots on. It's take a deep bend in the knees, but this kind of stability and awareness in the legs, but not just the legs, also the pelvis. Like feel how the pelvis kind of drops down if you bend the knees a little bit. Not necessarily, you could bend the knees and stick your butt out, but you could bend your knees and kind of let the tailbone drop down, let the pelvis kind of tuck, almost not quite tuck, but maybe. It's so hard to make the, like, it's to your own, you know, tendency. If you tend to tuck it under, it's not that helpful, but if you tend to like do the opposite, it's helpful to think of it as almost a tuck, but it's more just like a dropping straight down feeling. Yeah. And then if you just come back to stand in Tadasana, you might notice just like a different feeling in the feet even, or in the shoulders even. This is something I'm trying to figure out for myself. I'm like, if I can have legs and a pelvis, like for real, and inhabit that space, could I undo some of the shoulder stuff? I feel like I feel like that makes sense. You know, like I feel like they're connected, so they must. So that's what we're talking about. Inhale, come back to the face forward. Sorry, face towards the front of your space. And we'll inhale, reaching up. And exhale, fold all the way down. Uttanasana, and plant your hands on either side of your feet. And then you can walk yourself out to a plank. Oh, sorry, rotate some of your sideways. Yeah. And back to a downward facing dog. Kind of typical way that we will come into downward dog from this plank, but feel how your feet are pressing down and your pelvis is going up and out and away. Now find your hands as a continuation of like the other side of that line. As your pelvis is going up and back and away, your hands are going down and forward. So spread your fingers really wide, press down through the inner edge of your palm, really driving the floor away, opening the armpits, opening the chest, opening the shoulders. Yeah. And then you can bring your knees down to the floor and sink back into a child's pose. And in this child's pose, you can let the pelvis just kind of settle naturally, so you don't have to be so exact about, am I tucking the tail, am I widening, or what am I doing? Just, you're just in child's pose, like a child, like just this intuitive kind of settling down. And then you can walk your hands over to your right side. And as you walk your hands to your right, just settle down into the pelvis, into the fronts of the feet, into the fronts of the shins, into the knees, especially on the left side. So as you're reaching right, feel the left side grounding down. Yeah. See if the space between the shoulder blades can be soft, even though the hands are kind of reaching. You'll reach, 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 and then maybe soften in that space, in that pose that you found. And let your breath settle here, especially the exhalation. And then coming back forward, you'll come to the other side. So then you're reaching to your left, your right side is going down. You can think about like, I just am going down. The pelvis itself, the whole thing is going down. And so the right side must go down. And then you can feel this kind of spreading, opening through the side body or through like the top of the back of the pelvis or wherever you feel that the sensation. Noticing the exhalation, especially on this, in this kind of really closed, enclosed forward fold in the front body. You can feel the exhalation. And the back body is open, easy. Good. Nice. And then come back to center and come up to a seat. And now we'll take a seat with the legs out front. So it might be good to have something under your pelvis. Okay, here's something like if you're sitting with your, some of you might be, some of us, this whole area is kind of, it's hard to sit up in general. So your knees can be bent. Just feel if, maybe it's easier with the legs wide. For me, I think it is. Not in his pants. Anyway, so your legs are somehow out in front of you. And just feel that your tailbone is reaching back or your pelvis is tipping back and notice if anything happens. Or if you curl the pelvis under, this is how most of us, like when we come to sit in Dandasana, this is what happens, right? We're really tight in the hip area. So we end up sitting in a curled position anyway. So this might be your like you might recognize this as like, oh yeah, Dandasana. Like I know it super well. Like this is Dandasana. That's why we sit on the thing to kind of pitch the hips forward. Then if you pitch the hips forward even more, I have to kind of bend my knees. You pitch the hips, oh my God. Just reach your tailbone back even more. You can feel that you're starting to fold forward. Yeah? If this is feeling like something. You're sitting here minding your business, and then all of a sudden you're on one of those moving walkways like they have at some airports, like a conveyor belt, and your pelvis is going that way. And you're like, oh my God. It's just like Uttanasana, that's all I'm trying to say. Pelvis is spread, like sitting bones are going back and away from you, and you're like, oh shit, I'm folded. Yeah. Versus the tailbone is tucking under, and all of a sudden I'm sliding back and going this way. Yeah. Maybe you can rock forward and back from the pelvis. This is really exaggerated. I'm tucking the tailbone. I'm not just making this like movement with my chest, I'm tucking the tailbone under, and all of a sudden I'm laying down. Weird. And then I'm reaching the tailbone back and away from me, and all of a sudden I'm going forward. Yeah? Maybe. Or you can just rock forward and back. It's a smaller version of the same movement. That's kind of funny. That's not what I meant to do when we came to sit, but that's what happened. But that's the idea behind putting something under your pelvis is it tips the pelvis forward so that you can be upright. Okay, so now just come to a regular dandasana with the legs outstretched. Yeah, do you feel that, Cassie? It's like my tailbone is going towards my heels, and what has happened? What the hell? And then it becomes like this ab thing of like coming back up. You could pull yourself up from the tops of your shoulders. From here, from this, like whatever this is something we are inventing. Kind of like an Ardha Navasana or something. You could go, bring yourself up, or the pelvis could sit down into the ground and the chest could come up. And you could keep going. Yeah. Yeah, just keep the jaw like soft so you know that you're not pulling yourself up by your eyebrows or your lips or something. Letting it be really like down in the pelvis. Okay. Something to play with. So then bring your legs back out front. Bring your right foot across. Yeah. And some of you might tuck the other foot under like that, and some of you might keep it outstretched. Just feel that you can sit comfortably on both sides of the pelvis, whichever one you choose. And then you'll exhale, and just as long as you're exhaling, you're twisting towards your right knee. And as far as you get during the exhale, that's your twist. And then you'll just breathe here for a few breaths. Maybe every exhalation you twist a little more. Yeah. Try to keep it out of the neck and shoulders as much as you can. Let it be from the middle of you. Whoa, twisting with the breath. Good. And then inhale, unwind, and bring your legs back out long. You'll change the cross of your legs, so you'll bring the other leg across. And then you'll, same thing, chest is open, everything's nice and upright. And then you'll twist as far as your exhalation goes. You're twisting, twisting, twisting. And then you're taking a few breaths here. Maybe every exhalation you feel a little twisty development in the middle of the torso, underneath the ribs, between the ribs and the pelvis. Notice the pelvis stays where it was. It's staying, it's giving that like kind of opposite movement. It's stable, spine is twisting. Yeah, good. Nice. And then you'll inhale, unwind. And then you can take your soles of the feet together, knees wide. Maybe sitting up on something, maybe not, whatever is comfortable. Feet as close to the pelvis as feels good. Ooh, you can find the same action here. Here, we'll say, how about this? How about this? We'll do a forward fold. But what do we usually say? Inhale here. Exhale, bring your chest towards your toes, right? Let's just instead inhale here, exhale, shoot your sitting bones back and away from you. Yeah. Like reach your tailbone towards the other side of the room as you exhale and find yourself folding. Yeah. And then if you're breathing here in this Baddha Konasana, however foldy it becomes, you can feel that every exhalation, feel how the diaphragm is moving, the thoracic diaphragm. You can feel how the belly is releasing towards the spine. You can feel how this movement is really concentrated around the hips, the pelvis, and the lower belly, right? And then the shoulders, the neck can just be as easeful as possible. Good. Yeah. Nice. And then you'll come to lie down on your back. So you'll inhale to come up out of the fold and come to lie down on your back. Just coming back where we started. Yeah. And just noticing whatever you notice as you come to lie down. You can hug your knees in towards your chest and kind of rock side to side if you want. You can flex your feet. You can circle the ankles. Yeah. Good. Yeah, and then a diagonal twist might be really nice. Just twisting, bringing the knees one way and then the other. Yeah. And then the next thing we'll do, and it's in your own time whenever you want to make this shift, if you want to make this shift, we'll come to legs up the something, legs up the wall, legs up the, ideally they're resting on something like some kind of piece of furniture, but you could also do just viparita like in midair, like Cassie's showing right now. It's just like legs are up. Um, and if your legs are resting against something like the wall or draped over a bench or a bed or something, then you can feel the total lack of effort in your kind of hip area. And that's nice to just enjoy. And if your legs are up through your own, strength and balancing, you can imagine, just imagine that the leg bones are just stacked on top of each other. The foot is stacked. Everyone can imagine this, wherever, whatever position you're in. Even if the knees are bent, even if it's not like a perfect straight line, imagine the foot goes into the ankle, goes into the leg, goes into the hip, goes into the floor. Like just feel this kind of stacking, dunk, 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 all the way down into the ground. And imagine, pretend that there's absolutely no effort in the front of the hips to keep your legs there. And if you have your legs against a wall, you can actually release that effort, at least a little bit. You can ask. And everybody can feel that the pelvis is releasing down towards the ground. If your legs get tired, just bring your feet back to the floor so that you come back to just this resting position here. And you can feel the same thing. The back of the pelvis is resting into the ground. You can kind of find what back of the what, like back where, and find it with your hands even. Sacrum is right there. Okay. That's resting back into the ground. And then whether your legs are up or down on the ground, you're just feeling this shunk down into the hip sockets, down into the pelvis, down into the floor. Yeah. And maybe the more that you can release into the structure of your bones of the pelvis and the legs, the more you can maybe soften and release the muscles around this area. Notice without stretching, without massaging or like really adjusting anything. You're just through visualization, through visualizing the bones and feeling the weight of the pelvis on the ground, you might be able to feel some openness in the pelvic area and the hips. Good. And then notice the shoulders on the ground. Notice how they're resting, the shoulder blades are resting on the ground. How the chest is open. How the breath can easily move. Yeah. What about the neck and the head? Can they also just good. Nice. And then from here, you can release your knees back in towards your chest and come to sit. You can roll over to one side and come to a seat, or you can stay laying down. Yeah. And then wherever you are, we'll just do a little bit of simple pranayama. So just whether you're laying down or coming to a seat, just moving your breath in and out through your nose, an equal length of breath, inhalation and exhalation. Any tempo. And even in like simple pranayama, just controlling the breath at all, you might notice that the jaw or the face or some kind of feeling of concentration comes and then something tightens. Let it be really easy and really soft. So it might mean making the breath a little shorter or just not taking it so seriously. You might find that you get to actually take longer breaths and you're not so fixated on how long the breaths are, right? And then on your next round of breath, as you're breathing in, you have that nice equal inhalation and exhalation. Just play with pausing or holding a little bit at the top of the inhalation, suspending the breath at the top of the inhalation. Try that for a couple of rounds. So maybe you're breathing in for 6 of your own tempo, holding for 2, and then releasing for 6 again. And then inhaling for 6, holding for 2, exhaling for 6. And that pause after the inhalation might become longer and longer. Also, you might find it just suspending the breath might become easier to just, it's more like holding open space rather than holding down, like holding the breath as a squeezing in or holding down. You know, you can hold that open space and then let the breath move out. And then you can continue. If this is feeling comfortable, you can add a similar suspension after the exhalation. Again, not a pushing or a holding out, but a expansion into the space after the exhale. And that pause can be, a little longer, a little longer. Eventually, you might find your way into something that is like almost exactly even. Inhaling, holding, exhaling, holding. And it might become like a square, like equal sides, each part of the breath. And then this is very subtle, last little kind of consideration. If it happens, it happens. As you are inhaling and you feel that suspension at the top of the inhalation, you can think about like your thoracic diaphragm is like suspended in a particular pose, right? You might feel the pelvic diaphragm sort of lift and gather in the pause. And then as you exhale, you can release it. Don't feel like you're clenching or doing any kind of like pelvic floor thing. If it happens, that's cool. You can kind of invite it. You can kind of like play with it, which I guess kind of going with our theme. Inhale, full, holding this open space. Holding the bandha as the breath is being held. Kind of interesting. And then just release any doing, including the rhythm of the breath, and let your breath just come into a natural rhythm. And you might just reconnect with your physical structure and just feel yourself sitting on the ground, however you are, laying on the ground, however you are. And we'll close by chanting once again. So you might join me. So you can inhale, filling up deep into the bowl of the pelvis. And as you chant, you can move the sound up the spine. So inhaling. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu. Thank you all so much.